the fact that as an advertiser, I don't feel content with how things are today and how I believe we should be challenging things. Before I do go into what I believe the challenges are and how we could potentially be addressing them, I do just want to flag that this is not just a no. I don't see anything wrong with people that do feel content with how things are today, but I'm genuinely a firm believer that we really can't get anywhere with just being content about where we are. I really think we need to address the stigma that is around the word challenging. The fact that challenging doesn't always have to mean it's an uphill battle and struggle, and it can actually be a positive theme. But it's very much dependent on what mindset we approach challenges with, and if you're open to it and have a growth mindset towards challenges, you're going to think of this whole presentation in a much more positive way, and I'm definitely pitched it in this way. So the fact that challenges can be a positive thing and help us progress. But one thing I would flag throughout all of this is that the challenges we pick really need to be specific and be big enough to matter but small enough for us to win, so we can succeed at these challenges and challenge doesn't become associated with failure. So where do we begin? My advice definitely would be to keep it simple. So throughout this presentation, it's not groundbreaking in terms of the areas that we're going to be covering. It really is the three core areas that we're all involved in from a media perspective, around planning, buying and measuring. And we'll go through each of these examples, highlight some issues and concerns I believe we should all have with today, and some potential challenges we could be making, and then some example solutions to where I have challenged those examples. So first one is around how do we plan smartly. So today's world, many of us are using multiple media partners to buy our media, many of them which are actually allowing us access to exactly the same inventory, but all at different prices, which is often not in our control. We plan in isolation. We don't think what's going on elsewhere in the organisation. We think product by product and not more holistically about what our consumers are actually seeing from our brands. But why do we accept this? There's some really easy things that we can think of. First thing being our use of data. A lot of brands have data, it's just around being smart, how we use it to influence our planning, and make sure we are using it to filter the ads that we are showing to consumers and increase the relevancy of them. We also could be controlling our reach and frequency more through consolidating our buying approach, and most importantly, stop bidding against ourselves. By planning in isolation, we're ultimately driving up the cost against ourselves, because often there'll be a crossover in the audiences that we want to reach with our brands. And finally, as consumers, I'm sure most of you, when you're thinking of booking a holiday, do go on some of these price comparison sites and use them to look for the best price for you. So when we're buying our media, why don't we do the same and actually think of consolidating our media buys through singular DSPs that then gives you ultimately more control. So an example of how I've actually been involved in bringing this to life is through a decision tree style approach to our media buying, where we've actually stopped planning product area by product area and instead looked at the overall portfolio to how we planned, and really thought from a customer-centric approach. So thought about what is that customer's involvement with the brand. Are they an active customer? Are they a lapsed customer? Have they never even purchased from us? Then using considerations such as if they are an active customer, what products do they have? So we can then serve them relevant ads. So if they already have an existing product from you, you're not trying to resell them that product that they already have. Also using this as a decisioning function to work out what next ad to show someone. So obviously if they're not responding to an ad, just because they're in that audience bucket, there's no point continuously spending money to keep showing it them. Because if they haven't responded after numerous times of seeing it, it's really unlikely they're going to respond anyway. So having that logic built into your data segmentation to mean that if a user doesn't respond to an ad, you have a flow of what journey they should next go on and what ad you should then show them. And having this all mapped out for all of your products. So rather than having it kind of, I guess, individually plan-led, you think from a customer, they will see what the ad is right for them at the right time based on their journey with you as a brand. And by no means is this a simple thing to do. It caused lots of headaches, particularly in around the world of finance and how you actually structure a campaign such as this to not completely break your finance records. But it's definitely something that's worth considering because the scale and frequency that you can and control that you can gain from it is really worthwhile. The next is around buying and actually looking at paying for the goods that we receive, which when you say it like that, it seems ridiculous as to even have as a point. But today we are paying for many ads that haven't even been seen by a human, which just seems absolutely ridiculous. Why would we even entertain that? Also, if those ads that actually have been seen, many of them haven't been seen in full, with, as you all know, our viewability standards being fairly low at the moment, and often only for 1 second. And we're counting 50% in view and for 1 second as success. It just doesn't seem right. We wouldn't allow a 6-sheet at a bus stop to be half torn off and then cover it up as soon as a person's kind of initially blinked at it. So why would we accept it in other media? And then also the fact around sound. Over the past few years, there's been a massive explosion in the use of video across digital media, which is fantastic. It's a really engaging format, but we're running it in inventory that doesn't actually have sound on. So why would we do that? It just doesn't seem right. So some ways we could tackle this, actually only looking to pay for ads that have been served for humans. I know there's a lot of talk around paying for viewable-only impressions and lots of research, and I've been involved in it heavily to work out actually is it more efficient to pay for just ads that have been in view or actually all ads regardless of the viewability and accept the wastage. And I think that's still a question that the jury's not out on. Certain media partners, there's certain rules, but I think as a minimum we should be only paying for those that have been seen by a human. Because that just doesn't seem right. Next, it's looking that if you have an asset that needs sound on, deliver it in a sound on environment. Research shows the impact of having sound massively impacts their brand results and effects you can see from an ad. So this is a snapshot of a study that I believe was done by Nielsen. And it just shows the impact when something's audible and viewable, your brand effects increase significantly. And the next is around looking at your time in view. So a lot of talk has been around the percentage of viewability, but we really need to start thinking about more the time and the duration that people are seeing ads. Because again, research is showing, particularly from a branding perspective, the longer someone sees your ad, the higher not only recall, but brand intent they're likely to take from that advert. And also the fact that there's lots of tools that are being created, but at the moment there's quite, I think, a fear of them from the marketing community. But we really need to start embracing them and remember that ad tech was actually created to do good, not evil. And think about how can it assist us to making our buying of digital media better, smarter and more productive. So an example of how this has been done, I actually, in my previous role, worked on developing a set of terms that our partners had to comply with. So these were known as our digital trading standards, and these were in addition to the agency's trading standards that we worked with. And this really set out the standards that we were willing to accept from a viewability perspective, from being delivered to humans, and really upfront with partners that this is what we expect when we're buying inventory from you, and if you don't hit this, this is the kind of compensation that we expect from you. So it was really transparent with them upfront what our expectations were, and if they didn't think they could comply with it, they could flag up front. In addition to having just the buying considerations within that, we also had rules around measurement and the fact that we would enforce them utilising third-party verification vendors on our activity, and also feeding us back data to feed into our attribution studies and brand measurement studies. So the final area is around measuring holistically. So today, as I'm sure all of you experience, we measure channels completely separately. We use different measures and metrics as a success tool, which can make comparisons really hard. And what's even more comical, really, is that we have media partners actually telling us what we are allowed to measure against their own stuff that we purchased. Which very much means they are marking their own homework and obviously telling us that it's great, we should be spending more. And I think that's something that obviously, right, you just have to question yourself. Why would you take that? Why would you let someone invest your money, tell you it's doing great, and then tell you that you should be spending more without anyone else independently verifying that for you? So I'm a firm believer that we need to have holistic measurement in place. By no means is it an easy solution, but we really should be working with partners that are able to measure across multiple platforms and walled gardens to help give us that better insight. We need to have independent third parties verifying our media spend. It's not acceptable to have someone marking their own homework. You wouldn't let a child do it at school, so why would we do it in the media world? And importantly, we need to agree as an industry and even as individual brands, what is our definition of efficiency? There's so many different ways people can interpret the word efficiency that we need to work out what is it for you, so then you can be clear with everyone you're working with up front and you're all working to achieve the same goals. So some examples here of what efficiency could potentially mean. It could be around reducing wastage, so making sure you're getting the right ads to the right people. It could be around making our money go further, so gaining incremental reach with that budget that you're saving through wastage, or as simple as driving better results, so driving stronger brand results and intent to purchase. And we need to really accept that channels are different and it's okay for them to be different. I think for years I've had media owners presenting to me how digital can work like TV, it can extend your reach, and yes, it can be a reach driving tool, but it operates as a very different medium to TV, but that's absolutely fine. It has its own role to play, and I think we need to be mindful and respectful of that across media plans. So when we're planning, it's not negatively viewed that digital isn't TV. You view it in its own right and its own role that it can play for you. So some examples of how I've put these measurement standards into place. For me, it's very much around looking at what consistent metrics can you use across various partners, again, independent partners and walled gardens, and making sure you find consistent metrics for that. So one thing we put in place previously is using the notion of havoc to measure video inventory. So looking that video ads are human, audible, viewable, and on completion, and we class completion as being 50%. So rather than taking a time duration, we had confidence in our assets that we were creating from a video perspective, that they were fit for purpose for the inventory that it was going into. So time didn't become a factor, but we at least knew out of the ads that were shown, someone really needed to watch at least half of it for our brand message to land. And by using this metric, we were able to compare across all of our media plans, different partners, and work out effective CPMs that they were delivering and performing against in terms of these havoc metrics. So we actually created quarterly audits of all video inventories, including the walled gardens, ranking people by their effective havoc CPMs, and it reveals some really interesting results. So some partners who'd been on our plans for quite a few years, delivering video inventory, and were always talked about as being highly efficient, very quickly were removed, as when you view it against a havoc CPM, it's not so favourable for them. And not just by a few tens of pounds, like thousands of pounds difference were found amongst the partners. So it's a really interesting way of being able to have that consistency of how you think about your partners. Next one is around appointing a third party. So been very heavily involved in this numerous times around making sure that you have the right partner for you, you're able to track the metrics that are important to you. Although tech is very similar, there are some specialist metrics that the different vendors offer, so it's really making sure you have that right fit and regularly reviewing that fit. So as your business evolves and your digital activity evolves, is that partner still right for you? And then moving from only tracking a select number of campaigns to actually having this independent third-party tracking across all of your activity. So saying that today seems really obvious, and why wouldn't you track all your activity when you can? But just probably 2 years ago, I was working on activity where we were selecting a top 10 campaigns and only verifying those with independent parties. So it is really a project that I think we should all be embracing. And the next thing is around brand measurement and making sure you have systems in place that really allow you to gain an understanding of what all of your activity is doing. So we all have brand studies that we can run on independent campaigns, but really that's just looking at one campaign in isolation. They're all so different, you can never really compare the metrics truly. So actually looking at moving to approach and implementing an approach that you track all of your digital activity, whether it be trading or brand, literally everything you can track, and monitoring users' responses against a standardized set of questions over time. So not being campaign specific, but being more specific to your brands, to make sure that you can track how are those brand perceptions changing over time, and compare that then against what campaigns are running in that time to influence those perceptions. Also then being able to cut that data by media partners so you can really see which media partners are starting to drive those brand metrics for you. So you really know how to compare and monitor your results over time. And I think more importantly, you can then overlay that with sales data as well for those time periods to again map which campaigns, which media partners are really driving that efficiency. And then when you bring in things like your Havoc CPMs, you're really starting to get that more holistic approach to measurement and looking at those hard metrics and soft metrics in combination. So in terms of what kind of the key points you should all take away from this, because I appreciate that was quite a quick run through. I think I am keen to stress that not being content is okay. You don't need to stress about it though, like it's not a big thing. There's lots of really quick wins that we can all action within our day jobs. Don't discount your thoughts just because they're not the norm. I think often the ideas that aren't kind of BAU can generate some of the best ideas and concepts of how we move things forward as an industry. And remember to keep your battles simple. You're more likely to succeed, and obviously success isn't everything, but it means that your challenges become more appealing, and then the more challenges you take on, the better we're overall going to get. And finally, just remember that success does come in different forms. It doesn't always have to be this big, shiny transformation of how we do things. It can really be a simple change. So that's it.